What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Paddock, and today I'm going to show you a really easy way to add motion to your melodies by adding neighbor tones. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome everyone back to my channel. As you know, I have been on tour with Erut Ramazzotti for the last 14 months. So I have still been doing some YouTube videos, but they haven't been nearly as often or nearly as consistent. Now they will be ramping back up, and I'll be doing videos on a very regular basis. I'm also starting back up Skype lessons, so if anyone is interested in Skype lessons, the information to get in touch with me is in the info for this video. Okay, let's talk about neighbor tones. Neighbor tones are a really simple way to ad-lib on a melody. Ad-lib meaning add stuff into the melody, stuff that's not already written in the melody. So if you're using a lead sheet, which is kind of a bare bones way of playing a melody, ad-libbing is what you want to do to make it sound way more interesting. Now, one of the questions I get from students when I tell them to add notes to a melody, in other words, notes that aren't already there, they say, what notes do I add? The very first thing I tell them to work on are neighbor tones. Neighbor tones are great, and they sound good, and they're really easy. So a neighbor tone is when you have a note, and then you play the note above it, and then back to the note. So like if I played a D, and then an E, then back to a D. The D to the E to the D, the D to the E to the D, that means the E is your neighbor tone. So that's your above neighbor tone, and then the below neighbor tone would be the C. So you'd go D below to C, back to D. So the up and the down. So that's a really, really easy way to add notes into a melody, especially if you're holding a note. So for the example, I used When the Saints Go Marching In, and the notes are G, B, C, D. Now, if I just hold that D for a long time, it's going to sound really boring. It just sits there, it doesn't go anywhere. What I can do to make it sound way more interesting is add a neighbor tone. So what I'm going to do is add the E to the D. So I'm going to play the D, the long note, and then do the E and go back to a D. There we go, we have motion. It's way more interesting than just the regular. Now, we also have the lower neighbor tone. So this time I'm going to go from the D down to the C and then back to the D. When you're talking about neighbor tones, you're going to play the note, go down or go up, and then go back to the note. So here's the lower neighbor tone. I'm going from the D to the C to the D. And that's it. You can add neighbor tones all over the place when you're ad-libbing, and they're almost always going to sound good. Now, what you want to do is you want to choose different directions. In other words, you don't want to always play the above neighbor tone, and you don't want to always play the below neighbor tone. You want to switch them up, otherwise it's going to start to sound a little funny. So this time I'm going to play When the Saints Go Marching In, and I'm only going to use above neighbor tones. It sounds fine like that, but it sounds a little monotonous to me. It doesn't really have as much motion or movement because everything sounds the same. So this time I'm going to do the above neighbor tone. On the second one, I'm going to do the below neighbor tone. And then when I go back to the next one, I'll do the above neighbor tone. So again, that's a really simple way to add motion to your melodies. So let's do it in another song. Let's do it in Autumn Leaves. That's your normal melody without anything added to it. That top note is an A on the alto saxophone. So I'm going to do the neighbor tone above, which is a B. So I'm going to go A, B, A. Again, just a really easy way to add motion to it. So when I'm picking which note to go to, the general rule is going to be stay in the key signature. Stay in the key signature. Don't just pick a random note. That's not going to work 100% of the time because chords change and every chord isn't always in the same key signature. But for the most part, you're going to go up in the key signature. And if that doesn't work, try the half step, try the whole step, see what works. But for the most part, you're going to go up in the key signature. So in this one, I'm holding that A and I go up to the B. Now this time I'm going to go down to the lower one. So I'm on an A, I'm going to go down to a G sharp. They both work. Now, like a lot of melodies, Autumn Leaves repeats a lot. So again, I'm not going to use the same direction each time. When I do the first phrase, I'll go up. When I do the second phrase, I'll go down. Take a listen. You hear that? As opposed to going... It starts to sound boring when you do the same direction each time. So far, all the examples I have shown you have been on long notes at the end of the phrase. That's not the only place that you can add neighbor tones, but they definitely work really well there. So here is an example on All the Things You Are. This is what it sounds like, just bare bones. So what I'm going to do on that first note, it's an F. I'm going to do a neighbor tone below. Instead of going, I'm going to add a neighbor tone. You hear that? The note is an F. I'm going F, E, F, and then going to the B flat instead of just going F, B flat. So here's a neighbor tone. Here's without the neighbor tone. Now this time I'm going to do a neighbor tone on the F, which is the first note, and a B flat, which is the high note above. Again, sounds really good when you start adding those neighbor tones in. Now, this time I'm going to do the above neighbor tone. So the above neighbor tone of the F would be a G, and take a listen to it. To me, that doesn't sound good. It's not technically wrong. The notes fit, but to me it doesn't enhance the melody. It just kind of sounds like I threw in this weird note. So I wouldn't add that one. So the key to making neighbor tones work is to listen to what you're playing. See if the bottom one or the top one sounds better. Whichever one sounds better, that's the one you want to use. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. If you now understand what neighbor tones are and how to use them in your ad lib, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment below. If you have any suggestions of other topics I should cover, please leave me a comment below. Thanks a lot.